You ever buy a bunch of ingredients for something that doesn't work as well as you'd hoped, but then when you're trying to use up the leftovers, you accidentally strike gold? That's what this video is today, something I'm calling Mappo Spaghetti, a dish that was supposed to be something else that still might see the light of day eventually, but for now, I like this one better. So let me show you how I put it together. As the name implies, this recipe is inspired by the flavors of Mappo tofu, so we're gonna start by chopping up a bunch of aromatics that you would find in that. I'm starting with maybe a 1-inch piece of ginger and 3 cloves of garlic. You could grate this all on a microplane, and sometimes I do that, but today I'm just gonna go for a fine mince with the knife. Microplane will get you more flavor, this way gets you more texture, so up to you where you wanna land on that trade-off spectrum. Next up is a green onion. This is going to be strictly a garnish, so you could separate the whites and the green parts, but honestly, I hardly ever do that. I don't mind the more pungent raw onion flavor of the white parts, so I'm gonna do the whole thing. In addition to the green onion, for more garnish, I'll roughly chop up some peanuts. We're getting more into dan dan noodle territory with this, another one of my favorite Szechuan dishes, but I think they taste good and they add a nice little bit of crunch. And then finally, we have this, doubanjiang. More specifically, Pixian doubanjiang. Sorry if my pronunciation is off, I'm doing my best. It's a fermented product primarily made with broad beans and chilies. It's savory, fruity, spicy, and a little bit sweet. It's really, really delicious. It's gonna be the star of the show here, so I'll get probably a couple tablespoons of it. As you can see, it's pretty chunky stuff, and the chunkiness is good, but I'm gonna break it down a bit more so that it'll more cohesively integrate into the pasta sauce. Once that's taken care of, we're done with the chopping today, so now it's time to head over to the stove. To kick things off, first, into this stainless steel pan goes a couple tablespoons of neutral oil. I'm just using canola today. Then I'll add all of my garlic, ginger, and doubanjiang. In addition to these, I've got a few more aromatics here. This is some ground Szechuan peppercorns, which will bring that awesome mala tingly thing. A couple pinches of that, and then I'll add 1 star anise pod and a small piece of a cinnamon stick. And then lastly, I'll add a couple pinches of chili flakes. I'm using gochugaru today, which is fairly similar to Szechuan chili flakes. It's more about the fruity pepper flavor than the spice, so if you want it spicier, you can use a chili flake with more heat. I'm gonna treat this like I would an aglio e olio, which is to say I'm going to bloom all of these aromatics in the fat over medium-low heat. I'm not really looking to brown anything here, I'm just looking to soften everything and extract as many fat-soluble flavors into the oil as I can while taking the raw edge off everything. It's good to keep it moving so that nothing sticks to the pan, and after 5 minutes or so, what you should see is the oil getting stained with all that beautiful color, kind of like this. This looks good to me, so now it's time to add the rest of my sauce components, starting with some dark soy sauce. I like how the soy sauce contributes to the depth and savoriness, but too much and the saltiness of everything can get out of hand quick, so I'd say no more than a teaspoon or so. The doubanjiang is really salty on its own, so we have to account for that. Next goes a couple tablespoons of Chinese black vinegar, and I'll give that a quick stir and scrape to deglaze the pan. After that, I'll add some sesame oil, a pinch of MSG, and then about a cup of unsalted chicken stock. Make sure it's unsalted because, like I said, there's a lot of sodium here already and it would behoove us to not overdo it. And then finally, if you've watched my videos before, first off, thank you, but you may know that I usually don't like to add sweetness to my savory foods. Here though, the salty umami-ness of it all is cranked up to 11, so a little bit of brown sugar goes a long way when it comes to balancing things out. I like to let it simmer for just maybe a minute or so the flavors can meld into the stock, and with that, our sauce is done. This recipe will make more than you're gonna need for one portion of pasta, but that's okay because it'll stay in the fridge just fine for at least a few days. So for now, I'll transfer that into a measuring cup for safekeeping, and I'll put it off to the side while I start cooking my pasta. By the way, don't worry about washing that pan yet, we're gonna use it again in a few minutes. My boiling water is relatively lightly salted today for all the reasons stated before. You could use the trick of putting a pinch of baking soda in as well to give the pasta a slightly bouncier texture that more closely resembles a Chinese-style noodle. Or of course, you could just use Chinese wheat noodles. Up to you, but I'm just going with regular old spaghetti today and it's still gonna be fantastic. Not much else to say about this step. The only thing to keep in mind is to try to pull it when it's still a minute or two away from your desired doneness because we're going to finish cooking it in the sauce. For me, That's when there's still just a tiny bit of crunch left in the center. This tastes perfect, which is to say it's a little underdone, so after we finish it, we should achieve perfect al dente enlightenment. My pan from before is back on medium-high heat now. I like to add a little bit of the pasta water first. That helps make sure the pasta doesn't stick to the pan while I'm transferring it. Once it's all in, I'll add around 1/3 of a cup of sauce. You can really add as much or as little as you want, but it's pretty potent stuff, so you don't have to go crazy. And because I'm lying to myself, I'll throw in a handful of baby spinach leaves too. Shake and stir that to combine until the sauce reduces and the spinach wilts. I'm not super worried about achieving a perfect emulsion at this point because lastly, I'll turn the heat down to low and add about half a tablespoon of butter. For pasta sauces like this, butter is like a cheat code when it comes to getting that silky, glossy texture that perfectly enrobes and sticks to the noodles, and also it tastes good, so win-win. Stir to combine, and once the butter is melted, this mappo spaghetti is done. Here I am trying to make it look pretty in the bowl because I am online, but honestly, who cares? Just slop it up. I did a bad job anyways. To finish, I like to top it with some more Szechuan peppercorns, a handful of those chopped peanuts from earlier, and finally, some green onions. I love this dish. It's going to be in the rotation in my house for a long time. All those mappo tofu inspired flavors are so delicious, and this is just everything that I ever want a big bowl of comfort food to be. If you like what you see and want to like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and for written, in-depth recipes along with other fun exclusive stuff, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link for that is in the description. That's all for this one. Thanks. Bye.